So let's talk about port security once again. Unauthorized access from the unauthorized people coming into your LAN environment, that is visiting your office. Okay, but remember one thing, port security is doing filtering purely on the basis of MAC address, and just looking at the hardware address, that's all. Okay, so port security, it is just to secure your switch port. They have come out with this feature, port security. Your hardware address is taken into consideration, but definitely this is not a foolproof security in a LAN environment. But still, it's a good security, but it is not foolproof. It's not 100% foolproof. Even MAC address can be spoofed, or you can say MAC address, dummy MAC addresses can be used to get into the network. But still, you can do, people do it in the LAN environment. So that day I showed you that if I am going to make this switch as a, sorry, I wanted to show you that this switch is connected with, at present, everything is, nobody is there. Okay. If you see the diagram, E0 by 0 was connected with the switch, with the router, but I just switched off it so that nobody is there now connected. Now I'm going to implement port security on interfaces. You know, this is an access layer switch, so I might use interface range command. On this switch you have 4 interfaces or 4 ports. So when I say interface range, then I have to make this an access port, because this is an access port feature. Sorry, it's an access port feature. Always remember, in switch network you have 2 types of ports. It's either access port or it's a trunk port. You cannot have both the port at the same time. Okay, it's either switch port or you have trunk ports. If it is trunk port, it cannot become access port. If it is access port, it cannot become trunk port. Access port means only one device or 2 device, that is an IP phone, and can also be made part of that access port. Access port is something where you have edge ports. Access port are configured for port first. Last time also told you. So switch port, port security, because see, when you say show interface E0 by 0 port security, or show interface E0 by 0, sorry, show port security interface E0 by 0. When you say this, when you give this command, you can see that port security is actually disabled on all the ports. At least this port, it is disabled. And now what is the status of this? Secure down. Violation mode is shut down. Okay. Maximum MAC address is 1. See, basically, I told you, if you have not enabled port security, the maximum MAC address is not at all defined. Any number of MAC address. It depends on the capacity of a switch or the model of the switch. If this is the model, suppose this model might have a capacity of 20,000 MAC addresses. So it is, there is no limitation of MAC address on per port. The overall MAC addresses that are allowed on the switches are might be 15,000, 14,000 or 20,000. It depends on the model of the switch. Okay. So when I configure port security, which is not there by default, I need to make this port as what? Access port. So I said switch port mode access. Then I said switch port port security. Now this is the enough command. Like, it's okay. You give one command, it's enough. But then you see, if I enable, see, earlier it was disabled, now it is enabled. Single command enables port security. And what is the maximum number of MAC addresses allowed when I enable port security? 100% 1. Last time also showed you. Now immediately that attack, that is MAC flood attack, is mitigated. Why? Because only one MAC address is allowed on per port basis. So definitely he will not be able to send more than one MAC address. And if he is not able to send more than one MAC address on each port, and if it is a 24 port switch, he can send only 24 MAC address. That's all. Because now MAC address is restricted on per port. That means he can send only one MAC address on a port. So 24 MAC address. So 24 MAC address is very less, man. It is having a capacity of 15,000. So you cannot do that attack. Which attack? MAC flood attack. So one command makes a difference. But now the thing is, if you're telling one MAC address on one port, please tell which MAC address. Because my switch can't see. He can't see which one is the authorized one and which one is the non-authorized. So if suppose somebody gets connected to this, like for example, if this guy connects, he will consider this MAC address as an authorized. That means now your R3 is considered as the authorized machine. Let's see. See, he is telling boss, when you enable port security, I'm going to allow maximum one MAC address, and I have already learned that MAC address from this guy, R3, whatever. And his MAC address is this. So my boss, my administrator told me, allow only one MAC address, but he never told me which one. So whoever connect for the first time, I have taken it. Now the job is done. Maximum is 1, total is also 1. So now no more MAC addresses I will allow. Got it? But the thing is, who knows that this R3 is an authorized one? Actually, it is not an authorized one. So if this is not an authorized one, so he got selected as a, so if authorized comes, he will be denied. So the best practice in industry is don't just add one command, make it do one thing, like you specify which MAC address you want. But it is very difficult. And how many MAC addresses you are looking for? Because see, only one MAC address is not good. Why not good? Because if I connect an IP phone, suppose, if I connect an IP phone and if I connect a PC behind an IP phone, then I'll be needing one more MAC address also to be allowed on that port. That means if this is your switch and if I connect an IP phone, and then behind an IP phone, or behind an IP phone also there is a switch port. So if I connect a PC, then 100% this will be the MAC address, this will be the MAC address. That means one port will receive two MAC addresses. But as you said, only one, then this either the phone or the PC will get rejected and the whole port will go down, because this is a violation, and in violation what happened? The port is shut down. So he said, no, my company is having IP phones also. So do one thing, you keep it 5. What do you think? Or you keep it say 2. Okay, you can find out how many. See, the maximum address that you can allow on one single port or this ports is 4091. So less than what the maximum capacity. The maximum capacity is 15,000. So it's not an harm, man. You can allow 4097 addresses also on a per port, but not more than that. Because 4 into 2. So if I consider 4 into 24, suppose, you can imagine if I am allowing 4097 into 24 port switch, then this switch, if it is telling me that you can go for this many, then this switch is not having a maximum capacity of 15,000. It is definitely more than that. That is why he's allowing this many MAC addresses. So if I'm telling 15,000, it is an approximate number value which I took it from say 2950 older switches. If you see the data sheet, you will come to know what is the maximum number of MAC addresses allowed. So I said suppose 2, because I know I am going to connect an IP phone and a machine. But then he's asking me which 2, men. So I said I have to write it down. No, instead of writing down, I say sticky. Now when I say sticky, When I say sticky, what is doing? See, he immediately learned the MAC address and he sticked it. Good. That means when I say, he's telling boss, you said two MAC address. Earlier he was saying one MAC address. Now he's telling you have made a provision. You made a provision of two MAC addresses, and you are going to. Already I have learned one MAC address. So good. Please keep yourself mute. Those who have joined later. Okay. So when I say WR, what happens? It's okay. It's okay. So when I WR, that means this MAC address is saved. Okay, saved. Now if I restart also the switch, it is same. You want to see? So I stop this, and I remove this. Okay, and I now connect 4 on the same port. Now I start this. Let it get started. So I go here and say show run interface E0 by 0. You can see the MAC address is still intact. And when I say show port security interface E0 by 0, you can see he's telling me, boss, you said two MAC addresses and I've already learned one MAC address. Still one MAC is remaining. And I learned this through sticky. Good. So now what we'll do, we'll connect one more router or one more device. I'm just connecting router. I can connect a PC also. Normally I connect PC itself, but then PCs are, I don't know, some problems. So let's see. He's telling boss, I learned one more MAC address. So you said two, I learned it too. You can go and see he has sticked it. Done. So he's telling now no more MAC addresses I'm going to learn. Huh? This is the final. You said two, I accepted two. Okay, good. So there is a challenge in the beginning only there where you have to connect machines, okay, and get him learn through sticky. Now you try to connect this hacker. See, R3 and R4 is your genuine users. Now this hacker comes or attacker comes and he connects himself. He sees no one is there. He remove the cable of this R3 or R4 and he connects himself. Let's see what happens. So if I go here and say show port security interface E0 by 0, he is telling boss there is a violation now. He noted, and this is the guy who did this violation because he learned the address. But if you see show interface, show run interface E0 by 0, you can see 3 and 4 is the authorized one, 2000 is not authorized. So when I go and say show interface status, you can see he has already put this port into error disable. That means now even the authorized machines can't use this. So what I can do, how to remove this port from error disabled? I told you in the beginning only, due to port security. Okay. Due to port security, that is P secure violation. He just inserted this port into error disable. Error disable means what? Shut down due to error condition. So you understood your mistake. So what you do? You have to remove this. Okay. If you really want to remove this interface from error, so you have to say shut, and then you have to say no shut. When you say no shut, it comes up, and again, if he learns the same MAC address or violation, he will again put this port into error disable. He will immediately put that port into error disable. Got it? You have to wait because the time it learns the new MAC address, compare it with its ports. When I go here, that means you're doing the same mistake he's telling me. Okay. Or you can go for error disable recovery, automatic recovery also. Because see, somebody might do this kind of also attack. He might remove the authorized clients. He connects himself. Port is gone. Second port he connects. Port is gone. So he might shut down all the ports. And the whole LAN people are shouting, what happened, man? Why are ports? Why we lost the connectivity? So we can manually do shut no shut, or you can do auto recovery. So first you have to specify what is the reason why this auto recovery took place. Okay. So you need to find out what is the reason why this went into. So this is not the only reason. There is all many reasons. You have, because of BPD guard, I showed you. If anybody connects a switch on the port where port first is configured, then also it will go into error disable. Okay. If link flap configuration is there, inline power. So you see there are a lot of reasons. Storm control. So what is now our reasons? P secure violation. So you can say if anytime there is a P secure port security violation, then I want this should come up within 30 is the minimum, 30 seconds is the minimum time. Okay. 30 is the minimum, and 86,400, that is 24 hours. 86,400 seconds is nothing but 24 hours. So it's your choice. You want the port should come up after 30 seconds, then you have to wait, it will come up automatically. But I think there is some issue in this Eve switch. It's never come up automatically. Otherwise, in normal switches, it will come up immediately after 30 seconds. Not a big deal. Okay. So I hope you guys understood what is port security, how to configure port security on access layer switches, what is the importance of sticky. Many times there is a question that if somebody changes, like employee leaves the company and his MAC address is already strict here, what to do? Simple, you can go and remove this line. Okay, you can go and remove this. interface E0 by 0 shut, no shut. Okay. So now what happens? Show interface status. Show port security interface E0 by 0. See now, when I removed from that interface, it's still having a scope of one more MAC address. So you can give the authorized MAC address to him, and then he will continue accepting that MAC address. Okay, but so I hope you guys understood port security and the practical of port security. I told you by default the violation is shut down. See, in exams and all, if they are really asking port security, then they will never ask you to configure the violation mode directly. And always be careful, they will ask you to configure port security in the beginning task, that is switching task, and later on they might add one more device or 2-3 device and your port might go into error disable. You will never pay attention to that already you have configured port security. So you have to be very careful when you're doing the task later on when you configure port security, and they will never tell you straight away that you have to follow this instruction. You have to understand what exactly they're trying to tell you in the violation mode. They'll tell you that do some feature which will help to filter the traffic on the basis of MAC address. They don't want unauthorized users to get access in the LAN on the basis of hardware address. That means they are looking for port security. Okay. That means they are asking you to configure port security. Secondly, they might tell you to use a methodology where the switch should dynamically learn the MAC addresses. So they will tell you use a method where the switch immediately learns the MAC address dynamically and store it. That means you want to say they are asking you to save also. If you don't save the configuration, because see, when it learns the MAC address dynamically, it stores in the running config. When the switch get restarted, it will flash it out. So they are asking you to store. They are asking you to see that the MAC address should be permanently saved. Secondly, they will tell you that in case of violation, the port should not go into shutdown, or they'll tell you change the default violation method, or they might tell you keep the default violation method, or they will tell you see that the port should not shut down, and at the same time they'll tell you that the push the somebody get connected unauthorized user, there should be some trap or there should be some messages being sent to the syslog server. That means they are looking for a feature called restrict. Now here people get confused which violation mode they are looking, because see, I told you the marking is not on the whole port security might go zero if you don't select their choice. There is no minimum, there is no like you have done the port security, almost everything is done except for the violation mode, you selected the wrong one. So you will get at least out of the 4 points you will get 2 point or 3 point. No, you will get zero. You have to see that all the tasks of port security should be completed as what they are looking for. You cannot have that kind of marking where he say okay, he has given all the right answer, only the violation is wrong. No, everything will go zero. So it is better you be careful. If you are selecting restrict mode, you should know what is exactly restrict mode. If you are selecting protect, then you should exactly know what is protect. Now this question was there in routing switching lab also long back, and people used to do mistake. So if they are asking you for the port should not go down and at the same time SNMP trap or syslog, So you should know what is the definition of restrict and protect, and accordingly you have to select the violation. The default violation is definitely shut down. So you can go here and say switch port security violation, and then you can select the option. Now people get confused in the exam, protect or restrict, because protect is also very similar to restrict, only difference is not sending the logs. So if you select restrict, then your points are gone. So I hope you will keep all these things in mind while doing the lab. I hope you understood the practical of port security. Okay, clear with this, all of you? Let's move on for the next topic. Private VLANs or VACL. Have you heard about VACL? VLAN access list. Now what is VLAN access list? Okay. So what is VLAN access list? Or before that we'll do private VLAN. Okay. So now what is private VLAN? You have already heard about normal VLANs. Okay. You know what is the meaning of normal VLAN. Okay, all of you. In order to break the single broadcast domain, you do what? Normal VLAN, or you do VLAN. VLAN range from 1 to 4094. Okay. You know how to configure VLAN on a switch. Simple command VLAN 1, sorry, VLAN 2, VLAN 3, VLAN 4. Some VLANs are reserved, like VLAN 1 is reserved, VLAN 1000 to 2005 is reserved again. So you can go up to VLAN 1 to 1001. Okay. You have to select VTP mode transparent in order to support more than 1001 VLANs. So all those conditions you are meeting. Now the thing is, like, what is the importance or what is the significance of private VLAN when you have already VLANs? Okay. So try to understand that in normal VLANs, you basically break a single broadcast and you make multiple domain or multiple broadcast domain. Okay. Now, why there is a need of having a private VLAN? Because you see, there is a requirement or there is a requirement in a data center. Say, example, in data center, what happens? People from all over city or all over country, people come to this data center and place their servers or keep their servers in data center. Now these data centers assure you that your servers will be safe. They'll give you connectivity, they'll maintain your servers. All this they'll give you. Okay, assume that you don't have a cloud commitment. Okay, you're still following that old legacy method where you are keeping your data server, your own server with the data center, and this data center is assuring you that nobody is going to access. But now this data center is going to connect these servers on a single switch in a LAN. And you must be aware that if I connect multiple server on a single switch, they all become a member of a single broadcast domain, and by default it is VLAN 1. That means this server, they're all now member of VLAN 1, and now they are in a single broadcast domain. That means people who are in the single VLAN or the same VLAN can easily communicate. That means data center servers can easily come. That means vulnerability or threats are there, because other company server can easily access or get an access into your server, because they are all on a common switch. Okay. I remember my cable fellow, he connects all the subscriber on a common switch on my terrace. I've never seen him connecting every subscriber on a different switch. Okay, it's a normal cable fellow who is giving internet. But yes, if I'm talking about an ISP, they are very intelligent. They understand that we cannot have servers connected to, okay, we cannot have servers connected on the same VLAN. So they will definitely separate, you can say, they will definitely separate the server or the customers or subscriber. But how they are going to separate two subscriber? ISPs, how they can? Simple, they'll make VLAN, VLAN 2, VLAN 3. So customer 1 belongs to VLAN 2, customer 2 belongs to VLAN 3. So now they are separated. Customer 1 cannot communicate with customer 2, customer 2 cannot communicate with customer, or they can use VACL, that is VLAN access list. So now the question is, how many VLANs they are going to create, man? If there are 10,000 customers, how they are going to manage? Because VLANs you can go up to 4,000. So the question arises, how these VLANs will be created now? And who's going to take care of all those VLANs for the subscribers? So it again become very difficult task for an ISP also to separate customers from each other. 100% my cable fellow is not separating us. So everybody is in the same domain, in the same LAN. Vulnerability increases. Many companies, they have requirement. So I gave you an example of data center. I gave you an example of ISPs. Many companies, they have a requirement that they want to separate servers. They don't want servers to communicate with each other. They don't want different department servers to communicate with each other. They want to separate users. They want to separate servers. So for all these issues, there is one solution, that is private VLAN. Okay. So when we talk about private VLANs, always remember it is not like normal VLANs. What is the change? See, private VLANs normal VLANs you can configure on a switch with a VTP mode server. But private VLAN cannot be configured with the VTP mode as server. It has to be a transparent mode. Okay. But in VTP version 3, you can also configure private VLAN on normal mode. VTP version 3, not version 2. So when I talk about private VLANs are different from normal VLANs. Why? Because normal VLANs is used to separate, or if it is used for breaking the single broadcast domain. No doubt, it also gives you security and all. Same way, private VLANs also give you security and flexibility, that you can keep people separate from each other. So in private VLANs, you have primary VLANs and you have secondary VLANs. So in private VLANs, you have two types of VLANs, that is primary VLAN and secondary. In secondary VLANs, you have two, that is isolated and community. So in private VLANs, you have two, primary VLAN and secondary VLANs. In secondary, again two, isolated VLANs and community VLAN. Now how this works? Simple. Suppose you have a router or a firewall or a proxy server, whatever. So we'll assume that we have a firewall. Now this firewall is connected to a switch, and this switch is having now private VLANs configured in transparent mode. Everybody knows that in switches we have in VTP, VLAN trunking protocol, which is Cisco's protocol that Cisco started. VLAN trunking protocol is having three modes: server, client, and transparent mode. Server mode is a mode where you can create, delete, modify VLANs. Client mode is a mode you cannot create VLANs, you cannot delete VLANs, you cannot modify VLANs, but you can receive a VLAN from the server switch. You can keep it for yourself and forward it. In transparent mode, what happens? You can create VLAN, you can delete VLAN, you can modify VLAN, but you will not be part of the domain. You are out of the domain. Physically, you are connected, but you won't be accepting the VTP advertisement coming from the server or the client, but you can still forward it to others. So in transparent switching, what happens? This switch is isolated from other, not connected. The requirement is also very less. It is the requirement in data center that they want. So what is the requirement? They want these two servers should not communicate. So what is the best option? You go for secondary VLANs. What is the question? Don't want these two servers to communicate with each other in a data center, because these two belongs to some other guys. So you do one thing. No need to create any access list. You can just put them in an isolated. Once you put them in an isolated, they will stop communicating with each other, though they are in the same subnet. Now this beauty of private VLAN is like that. You don't have to have multiple VLANs first. Secondly, you don't have to have multiple different subnets. You can keep all of them in the same subnet. So now our main subnet is 192.168.10.0/24 for all of them. Okay. So you created, say, VLAN 30 as a primary. You created VLAN 10 as an isolated, that is secondary. In secondary also isolated. You created VLAN 20 as a community, which is optional. It's not necessary to create community. Huh? If you don't create community, it's okay. Because I told you, private VLAN is having two things, primary and secondary. In secondary, you have two, isolated and community. What is the role of the isolated? Don't allow any machine which belongs to isolated VLANs to communicate with each other. See, normally if machines belong to the same VLAN, like VLAN 10, normal VLAN, they can easily communicate with each other. No restrictions, no inter VLAN is needed. But here the thing is, we don't want these two machines to communicate with each other. Though they belong to the same VLAN, that is VLAN 10, because just because you inserted them in isolated, they'll stop communicating with each other. Good. So it's as simple, no? Put them in isolated, enjoy. Now what happens? Why you need community? You don't need community, but then is a requirement. What is the requirement? The requirement is, I want these two servers to communicate with each other. But before going to community, I tell you one more thing about isolated. They will not communicate with each other, but they can easily go on primary VLAN. Why? Because you see, this firewall is connected to internet, and these servers really want internet and traffic on this server. They might be commercial servers, yeah. So they want all the internet traffic to come in. So if they really want, definitely, if they want all internet traffic to come in and they also want to visit on internet for updates and all, they can do. That means when you configure isolated, actually you are not allowing these two machines or these many servers to communicate with each other, but they can still communicate with primary VLAN. Who is there in the primary VLAN? Who is there in the primary VLAN? Firewall. And firewall is connected to internet. There might be router also. It's not just firewall becomes the member of a primary VLAN. It can be a router, it can be a firewall, it can be a multi-layer switch, it can be a server, proxy server, any device which gets connected to internet. So here the question arises, can isolated communicate with primary? Yes, they can communicate with primary. Even primary can communicate with these guys, but they themselves can't communicate. No talking to each other. Now, what is the requirement of community? Now, community means what? There is a portal here in India called shadi.com. Now, shadi means marriage for all those who are foreigners, not from this country. You can say matchmaking servers. Still, people do matchmaking and marry. Still, maximum people don't do love marriages. They always go for a match, find out a beautiful girl, find out a good girl, check out his biodata, or you can say resume, check out his height, weight, features, everything, how she talks, how she walks, everything match, and then only they propose or get married. So this is called, so there are portals who are making money out of this. They will always take the pictures of the girls and boys, post here, post their CVs, everything. So there is a guy, Indian guy or any guy who's situated in abroad and looking for a good girl to get married. He can visit this server and get a good match. But for doing that, he has to pay some money, and for paying that money, he is having PayPal server, as you must have also paid the fees through PayPal. So now this PayPal is connected with shadi.com, and shadi.com is connected with PayPal for communication. So there is a requirement in the data center where these two servers want to communicate with each other. You cannot place them in isolated, so you place them in community. So what happened when you place them in community? They can communicate with each other. They can also communicate with primary. Primary also can communicate with them, but they can't communicate with isolated, and isolated also cannot communicate with them. So once again, the definition of isolated: two machine or more than two machine cannot communicate with each other when they are placed in isolated. They can easily communicate with primary, and they cannot communicate with community VLANs also. So when we talk about shadi.com, or when we talk about this matchmaking server, and if you are looking really for communicating between these two rows as a special case, then you can create a community VLAN. In community VLAN, you can allow these servers to communicate with each other, but they can't communicate with isolated, and they also they can communicate with primary. That means all of them can communicate with primary can communicate with them, but isolated cannot communicate with any community VLAN. Community cannot communicate with any isolated. You can have many community VLANs also. Like now you created one community, you can have 2, 3, 4 as a special case. Okay. So you can have many community VLAN, but see, many you don't need many isolated one is enough, no, because the condition is same, that you don't want multiple machines to communicate with each other. You can put them in isolated, so you can have one isolated, you can have many community. And if you don't have a requirement of community, forget it, just put all of the machine into isolated and do it. Okay, clear all of you? Someone is asking question, what is it? Okay, good. Yes. In this diagram, if you see, you have a router which is connected to internet, say R2 is internet router. So your this portion is primary VLAN. And I told you primary VLAN can communicate with, so primary VLAN means a VLAN where you place the router or a firewall, whatever. This is internet. Now you decide, like I have decided that I will put these two machine in isolated to show you how it works. I will put these two machine in community to show you how community works. So you have this as 10, you have this as 20, and then subnet is same. You can see 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Everything is in one. Show VTP status. Show VTP status. You need to check VLAN 10, private VLAN isolated. VLAN 20, private VLAN community, and VLAN 30, private VLAN primary, and this have an association with 10 and 20. So what is the meaning of this? I created 3 VLANs. Number can be anything. It can be 2, 3, and 4. I started from 10. I said this VLAN is isolated, this VLAN is isolated. I said this is primary, and this primary is associated with these 2 secondary VLAN. That means this VLAN should know, primary VLAN, that he can talk to 10 and 20. So when I say show VLAN, it will never see in the normal VLAN. You can just check 10, 20, and 30. Okay. Non-operational. VLAN 10, private VLAN, isolated. VLAN 20, private VLAN community, VLAN 30, primary, association 10 and 20. Okay. Show interface status. So E0 by 0, E0 by 1, E0 by 2, E0 by 3. If I go in that and let me check something not accepting, let me check. E0 by 0 and 1, private switch port mode host, or switch port, the command is switch port mode private VLAN host. Now this is similar to what we used to do in normal VLAN. In normal VLAN we say no switch port mode access. Why we say access? Because we know that this port is connected to a single machine. So here also we say switch port mode private VLAN, and then we say host. Host means access port. Okay. And then we say switch port private VLAN host association 30. This belongs to 10. Now what is the meaning of this? One 192.168.10.2/24 192.168.10.1 is the gateway. So IP 192.168.10.3/24 192.168.10.1. IP 192.168.10.4/24, and the gateway has to be 1. One 192.168.10.5 192.168.10.1. So VLAN. Config T E range E0 by 2-3 switch private VLAN switch port mode private VLAN host switch port access switch port private VLAN. The command is, first you have to mention the primary VLAN and then his own VLAN. If you see the command, always see, I told him that first you have to belong to First, you have to know who is your primary VLAN and then your VLAN. So these two ports belong to VLAN 10, these two ports, and this two port belongs to VLAN 20, but that comes afterwards. First, you have to specify the primary VLAN. Now, this command, private VLAN host, is like switchport mode access, and the second command, private VLAN host association, is like that. Switchport access VLAN 10, switchport access VLAN 20. Similar to normal VLAN, in normal VLAN also we do the same. Okay. So WR, so version, I don't know, this image is, I think, creating problem. So we'll do one thing, we'll change the image. Because when I say show VLAN, telling non-operational. But it's telling that this is your primary VLAN ID and this is the. So when I go interface range E0 by 0 to 3 and say shut and then no shut. Okay. Now I'll go on the, it's like, it's like this is a kind of a trunk and this is like an all access. But the term trunk is not there. Instead of that, the term is what? Promiscuous and host. Now, what is the meaning of host? All those pieces which are connected and access, they are called host port, and all, and the link which is connected to firewall and belongs to a primary VLAN is like a promiscuous. Promiscuous means transmit and receive from all these VLANs are allowed. They can communicate with each other. They can communicate with each other. Why? Because this fellow can communicate with both. Isolated also can communicate with primary. Community also can communicate with primary. Primary can communicate with both. But these people cannot communicate with each other. These people can communicate with each other. These people cannot communicate with each other. Let's see how it works now. So VLAN. So you can see they have all come down. But don't forget to configure E1 by 0 as a promiscuous port. Show interface status. 0 by 0, 0 by 1, 0 by 2, 0 by 3. Okay. So I'll go here, edit, change the image. I think I got connected to the wrong one. That is why it is creating a problem. So IP INT brief. Let's configure router E0 by 0 IP address 192.168.10.1 255.255.255.0. No shut. Interface S1 by 0. IP address 12.1.1.1 255.255.255.0. No shut. So IP INT brief. This is a R1 router. R2 R2 is showing switch image. Okay. First name R2. So IP INT brief. So IP INT. Ping 12.1.1.1 working. IP route 0000. Suppose this is an internet IP. Ping 1.1.1.1 pinging. So routing is done. Ping 192.168.10.1 pinging. Ping 192.168.10.1. Okay. Show version. Edit. show VLAN, config T, VTP domain, CCIE, VTP mode, transparent, VLAN 10, name, private VLAN, isolated, 20, community, primary, private VLAN, association with 10 and 20, show interface status. Okay, show VLAN. Now you can see showing type and community. Primary is 30, secondary is 10 and 20, their name is isolated and community. Now the two ports which are connected with E0 by 0 and E0 by 1. So interface range E0 by 0 and 1. Switch port, mode, private VLAN, host. It's like switch port mode access. Then you say what? Switch port access VLAN 10, no? So instead of that, you say switch port private VLAN, host association, primary VLAN first, and then his own VLAN. 2 to 3. E0 by 2 and E0 by 3. Command is same. Okay. So when I say show VLAN, you can see E0 by 0 and E0 by 1 belongs to isolated, and E0 by 2 and E0 by 3 belongs to normal. Okay. If I don't put them in any VLANs, let's see. Whether they are able to communicate. So interface status. Let's see. Anytime it's a virtual system, so it becomes very difficult to communicate with. So 192.168 10.1 is pingable, 10.2, let's see. Sometimes it happens. So CDP neighbor showing R1 is there. So interface status, it's showing connected. So IP address is there. 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 3, 4, 5, 6 is not there. So 4, 5, 6, and 7. 4 is 10.2. Ping 192.168 10.2 himself. Sorry. 3 is neighbor. 3 is neighbor. Pinging. Gateway. Pinging. Gateway is also pinging. Normally, yeah, without doing anything. 3 pinging. All are pinging. 4 pinging 5. So my R1 can ping 2, 3, 4 because is so now initially everything is working without any private VLAN configuration. All machines can ping each other. Ping 192.168.10.1 gateway perfectly pinging. Perfectly pinging the machine which is going to become part of now isolated. Still it's not, still it is in normal VLAN, huh? VLAN 1. I have not put them in any VLAN. So when I say show VLAN, they're still all part of default VLAN. So they can easily ping. Now I'm going to put them in what? Isolated. So once again, we'll do that command. So when I say show VLAN, you can see they are now part of isolated. Let's see if they can go to gateway. Why? Because we have still not defined the promiscuous port. Can they ping each other? Lost connectivity. They can't even ping gateway. So both this machine is not able to ping each other. Okay. So one more configuration is remaining of promiscuous, that is E1 by 0. So I go here on E1 by 0 and again I say what? Switch port mode private VLAN, but this time I won't say host. I will say what? Promiscuous. Promiscuous is like a trunk port. Switch port private VLAN mapping 30 will get mapped with 10 and 20. So you remember, it's like, allowed VLAN on trunk ports. Normally we say, no, switch port trunk encapsulation dot one key switch port mode trunk, and then also many times we allow VLAN. So same way, here the command is little bit different. Here the word is what? Mapping, not association. So we are making this kind of, it's like a trunk port. Or the description is, it is going towards the firewall. It is actually part of primary VLAN. You can see, show VLAN. So you see, E1 by 0 is part of both the VLANs. Why? Because both of them knows about primary VLAN. So E1 by 0 is here also, E1 by 0 is here also. But still we have not inserted E0 by 2 and 3. What is the command? Switch port mode private VLAN host switch port private VLAN host association 30 and then. So when I say show VLAN, you can see now 0 and 1 is now isolated, 2 and 3 is now community, and both of them can communicate with primary VLAN which is connected via E1 by 0. Let's see. So these two machines 6 and 7 should ping each other. Why? Because they belong to community. What is the IP address of 7? 5. Can you see? These two machines, just because they belong to community, they can ping each other. That means these two machines belongs to community, so they are pinging each other. This is 4 and he's trying to ping 5, and this is 5 and he's trying to ping 4. But these two machines will not be able to ping each other. That means this machine is 2 and he's trying to ping 3, is getting negative. this machine is 3 and he's trying to ping 2. But both this machine and all these 4 machines can ping 1 because 1 belongs to primary. 1 belongs to primary. Can you see? So VPC 4, 5, 6 and 7 can easily ping primary. Now, can this machine ping 4? No, because they belong to, this 4 machine belongs to community. 5 also belongs to community. So they can't ping community machines. They can't ping each other, but they can only ping. So isolated is very bad because these machines are not able to communicate with each other. They are not also communicating with any other community. In fact, community VLANs also cannot communicate with isolated. Huh? Both these machines are 10.2 and 3 isolated machines. See, they can't communicate with each other. Can R1 ping all of them? Yes. Can they go on internet? Yes. What is the IP address of the Google? Suppose they are going on internet. Internet, yes. Internet, yes. All of them are able to reach internet. This is internet. 1.1.1.1. So this fellow is coming like that and going. Communication between them. Communication between these guys and these guys also not possible. Why? Because they belong. Two community VLANs also cannot communicate. Huh? Two community also cannot communicate. Like for example, I create one more VLAN 40, private VLAN community. So when I say show VLAN, I can see one more community VLAN is there. But I also have to go to 30 and tell him that private VLAN association 10, 20 and 40. So when I say show VLAN, you can see primary is associated with these two communities, 20 and 30 and isolated. Good. So let's put this two machine into second community. So I say interface E0 by interface range E0 by 0 and 1, switch port, private VLAN, host association, primary VLAN is this and they belong to 40 now. So when I say show VLAN, you can see these two ports are now member of community VLAN 40. And let this guy also know interface E1 by 0, switch port private VLAN, mapping 30 and then he is mapped with 10, 20 and 40. So when I say show VLAN, you can see 40, E1 by 0 is also mapped with this guy, and mapped. But these two ports are now removed. So now these two machines can communicate with each other because now they belong to same community 40. This guy also can communicate with but these two machines of community 40 and these two machines of community 20 again cannot communicate with each other. Let's see. 4. VPC 6 is 4, na? And 5, not yet. These two machines cannot communicate with two. That means two community also will not communicate with each other. This is VLAN 40 now in our example, and this is VLAN 20 now. This is also community. This is also community. Two communities cannot communicate with. Two machines in the same community, yes. Primary, yes. Two machines in the same community, yes. Primary, yes. Any doubts in this? I will give you this configuration diagram. Anyone, any doubt, please, you can ask me. So I hope private VLAN is clear theoretically as well as practically. All of you. Now, private VLAN is more powerful than VACL. Initially, they came out with VACL, VLAN access list. But nobody go for VLAN access list. Why? Because private VLAN is more powerful than VACL. Because in private VLAN, what happens? The configuration is less, and immediately you see the results are there. Like, I don't want okay. So VLAN access list, like already you have studied in CCNA normal access list. We call it router access list. Access list is actually used for filtering. Now, in security, everything is access list only. In ASA, all the policies. So you are aware with the access list, standard access list, extended access list, named access list. Okay. So, and many other type of access lists you're going to see. So you already know about this access list, standard access list, extended access list, named access list. Now, these are the access lists which normally we do in router and any layer 3 device. Like if switches are also multi-layer switches, you normally do this for filtering layer 3 traffic, because every time you specify the source, you specify the destination. In fact, Cisco was the first to act as a firewall. Cisco devices, like Cisco router was the first to act as a firewall when there were no firewall. That is why routers are considered as what first generation firewalls. So people started asking, how come it is a firewall? It is a router, man. No, man, it is a firewall also. So how come? Be simple. You can filter the traffic on the basis of access list. So whenever you filter the traffic on the basis of access list, it is acting like a firewall. No doubt it is a stateless firewall. I'm talking about first generation firewall, not today's firewall. Today, in fact, you can make a stateful firewall to your ISR routers also. We call it iOS firewall, stateful. But I am talking about 15 years back, 20 years back, when there were no name of firewall itself. There were no firewall. There were no terms like firewall. So people used to filter the traffic with the help of router only. How to filter the traffic with the help of router? Simple. They used to configure filtering tool called access list. So I'm talking about access list, which is definitely part of a router, and we call it router access list. But here we are talking about VLAN access list. Now, what is access list which is to be configured on a VLAN? Definitely something related to VLAN. That is why it is called VLAN access list. But what is VLAN access list? Actually, router access list always have some router access list always filter the traffic that comes in and goes out. That is ingress and egress. I remember I can go in front of any celebrity's house and take pictures. So I go to Bandra, Shah Rukh Khan's house. There is a bungalow there. In front of the gate, I can take pictures and show my friends. See, I visited Shah Rukh Khan's bungalow, Indian celebrity, movie fellow. So you can also go to any celebrities in Hollywood and you can take pictures outside his house. Huh? Don't go inside. Nobody can stop you. Why? Because you are still out only near the gate. But if you try to enter or if you try to go inside, somebody will stop you. So always remember, filters work only when somebody ingress and somebody egress. So router access list always do like that. They always filter the traffic which enters or exits. Traffic which enters or traffic which exits, they filter it. Depends whether the access list inbound or whether the access is outbound. Access lists are always inbound or outbound. Inbound for incoming traffic, outbound for outgoing traffic. But when we talk about VACL, VLAN access list, try to understand that this is the filtering tool which actually filters the traffic which is emerging and staying within a VLAN. It is never crossing a VLAN. That means this access list is called RACL and this access list is called VACL. What is the difference? Both are filtering. But what is the difference? This is actually configured for the traffic which actually stays within a VLAN. So I remember a joke when I was in school days, when I was doing my schooling, we used to always giggle, we used to always chat with our friends. We used to smile, we used to talk. Sometimes we exchange some food also, some chewing gum or something. But I remember a teacher always used to say, pin drop silence. This is a common dialogue she used to come and say. Children, pin drop silence. What is this pin drop silence? I don't want to listen any damn thing, even a pin drop. So we used to say, now teacher will come and say, pin drop silence. But it never happened in my 10 years schooling. Teacher as soon as turns her back to write something on blackboard, we used to start chatting. We used to start giggling, laughing, hissing sound coming. Then teacher again used to get fed up. He always say, what is going on, man? I told you pin drop silence. I told you don't talk. Still people are talking. It never happened that some guy is not talking to another guy in his own bench. Never happened. I never seen in my 10 years schooling. So how it is possible that you have PCs in VLANs and they should not communicate with each other? Not possible. They'll always communicate with you until unless you put them in isolated, which we did it just now. Extra feature. So before private VLAN, they came out with VACL, a tool which says, yes, it is possible that if anyone who is connected to this switch, like for example, this is a server and these are the users. And if you don't want these users to communicate with this server in the same VLAN, you can do it with VACL. That means the traffic which emerges from a particular VLAN and stays inside a VLAN, never crosses the VLAN boundary. No doubt you can do it for traffic which crosses the VLAN boundary also. I'm not telling like that. But the main goal here is to filter the traffic which is already part of a particular VLAN and which want to remain in the VLAN and you want them to get filtered. Just now when I did isolated, the same thing I did. So that same thing can be done with the help of an access list. So now what you, just a small example where you have a network of say 192.168.10.0. That means you have a VLAN called VLAN 10 or 100, whatever. And in this VLAN, you have a network of 192.168.10.0/24, which is VLAN 100. And in this VLAN, there are a lot of machines. 254 machines are there. If this is /24, 254 valid hosts. Say, example says that you don't want this host, you want this host to deny traffic this to all the hosts in the same net. So you want to deny the traffic of this particular host to all the hosts in the same network. So how are you going to stop? What is the question? I want to deny this host to communicate with all the other hosts in this particular VLAN. Host should get denied traffic. Traffic, all the traffic, huh? Not a particular traffic, all the traffic. That means equal to any. If you don't specify, it is any. So I need to create an access list. Now again, you will say why you are creating a router access list, because that is the access list which actually pinpoints the source and destination. So we need to create an access list. But see, in router access list, the whole control is with the access list and the access group, which you apply it on the interface, right? In router access list, once again, you have the whole control on the access list and the access group that you apply on the interface, either inbound or outbound. But here, the control is with VACL and not with the access. So then if the control is with the VACL, then why you are using access list? Because remember one thing, access list is the only tool which can specify protocol, source IP, and destination network. Your question is what? This particular host should not be able to communicate with the whole network. So what you said, access list 120 permit IP host. IP means all the protocols. Host means one user, that is 10. And this is the network 10.0 wildcard mask. 10.0 is the whole network. Now you can also have a named access list. Huh? One are the same thing. Named access list or named access lists are very flexible. You can add more hosts also. Now you create an access map. Now VLAN access map is very similar to route maps. So route map and access map is almost same. No doubt, route map is the master of all tools. So I created an access map. I named it as deny host 10 and I said action drop. See, here I said permit, but here I said action drop. That means who is being followed? Definitely access map. So I created an access map where I say action drop and then I match the IP address 120 or the named access list, that is block host. Then I created one more access map and I said action forwarded. Now this is for all the others, because you must be aware that in standard access list or extended access list, in the last statement, you have to say permit IP any. If you don't say permit IP any, what will happen? There will be an implicit deny. There will be an implicit deny. So in order for other hosts to access normally, you need to create, because see, if you say action drop for a particular host, then it will be implicit drop for all the other hosts also. So you don't want for other hosts also, there should be implicit drop. So you have to create one more statement which says forward. This is nothing but sequence number. Sequence number is always followed. 10 means what? 10 will be always followed over 20. Okay. You remember that in normal access list, you go and say access group. So here also you don't have interface. It's a VLAN, no? How are you going to apply it on interface? In router, you have incoming interface, outgoing interface, inbound, outbound. Here you don't have interface. You have VLAN here. So you have to say VLAN filter name. What is the name? The name of the access map. VLAN list. You have to specify which VLAN you have done this filtering. So I told you in the beginning only the example is for VLAN 100. So you have to specify here VLAN 100. Apply VACL on VLAN 100. So while now what happens? Suppose this host comes who is 10.100 and this host belongs to VLAN 100. So what will happen? This switch will immediately stop him. Boss, wait. Why? Because my administrator has put a filter on VLAN 100 and you belong to VLAN 100, right? He say, yes, I belong to VLAN 100. Good. So you have to wait because I have some instruction of filtering, but the instruction is on deny host. Let me check. So when he go and check deny host, he will find 2 deny hosts. He say, boss, there are 2 deny hosts. So which one? The one which is having the lower sequence number. So he will consider this as first. This one is 20. So this will be considered as second. So deny host, he is going to find deny host. But again, the instruction is not in deny host. The instruction is in access list 120. So he's now going to access list 120. He says, boss, what is your IP address? So he said, I'm 10.100. Man. Now tell me where you're going. So he's telling, I'm going to 10.50, which is the server. Man. Match. So when I say permit, actually I'm following the instruction that yes, this is the guy who is being mentioned in this statement. 10.100 is mentioned and he's trying to go to 10.15, which comes under this network. So the statement has matched completely. Now let me check the action. The action says what drop. So again he will come back. See, if you say deny here, he will never come back. He will leave the, he will get permitted automatically. So he'll be left. So I want this fellow to come down for the action. So when I want this fellow to come down for the action, I have to say permit here. Always, this access list should be always permit. Don't say deny. But this statement is very important. This action is very important. I told you VLAN access maps action is very important. Okay. Now who comes? Another user. 10.5. Wait. You belong to 100. Please wait. Let me check deny host. I found deny host. This one is the best because it is having the lower sequence number. But the instruction is in 120. Let me go and check 120. Who are you? He's telling I'm 10.5, not match. Where are you going? On 10.50. That is match, but the complete access list is not match. So what to do with this? Forget this. Check for the next access map. What is the next access map? Anything other than 120 match, forward it. So this guy immediately go and access. Anything other than deny host access map, because this is not getting matched, no? 120 is not getting matched. So he will try to find Another access map. Another access map. Say, please forward it. Forward it. Got it? See, this is just one example I'm showing you. There can be many such. So what happened? No, after that it became very complicated. Like how many users you will filter, protocol, all those stuff. Like somebody says, no, I want this user to get denied only for telnet. So I need to make it TCP, then I need to make it equal to 23. But then extend drop means you'll be getting drop. Got it? So this is like again became very complicated. Like you have to think now how to permit him for all the other services and deny only for telnet. Because here in the earlier example, it was completely deny for all the traffic. Now here you have said, no, don't deny him for all the traffic, just deny him for telnet only. Don't allow him to do telnet to the server. So action drop will deny him for everything. I don't want him to get drop for this thing. So what happened now? People started getting, thinking like how to do all those filtering, and then it becomes complicated because number of lines that has. So initially they came out. So VSCL was like a flop show, and people started utilizing private VLAN. Still, you can use VSCL to do some basic filtering. Okay. So I hope you guys understood this lecture. If you have any trouble, you can ask me. Okay. So I'll end this lecture here only. I will send you once I take dinner because now it is 10:30. So I'm fully tired. So what I'll do, I'll send you in the morning the video. Okay. That is why I don't send, because at my time it is 10:30. Then I take dinner. It's 11:30. So it becomes very too much. Then I go to sleep immediately. So what I'll do, I will upload this video tomorrow morning. So you'll get it. Okay. All of you.
Yeah, Munawar, with video also share this configuration file also. Note
Yes,
that.
yes. I already made this configuration, proof attack configuration, everything. I
Okay.
have files for all these things. I can put it into lab guide. I can give you like that also, not a issue. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Don't worry about that. I have made lot of configuration. See, everything I have designed it. How
You
to
have
how to
your
configure.
screening.
Acha, I stop my screen. See, how to configure failover on the ASA, how to do transparent firewall, how to do anti-spoofing, everything, how to do site-to-site VPN, what are the steps, commands, everything. So that all, everything you will get it. Okay.
The last time I have requested to share this study material also.
Actually, the books are scattered here and there. Study material means you'll be having, see, I don't have CCIE book, latest one. I don't have that.
Mhm.
Okay, I think they have not removed also for version 6. I don't know. But whatever, okay, I'll do one thing. I'll upload it tomorrow. Okay,
Okay,
whatever study
thank you.
material. Okay,
Okay, thank
sorry for delay.
you.
Anyway, I
Okay.
hope you all like my lecture. Thank you very much. Good night. Have a nice day. Bye. Take care.